Welcome to We Chat Divorce, hosted by Karen Chellew, Legal Liaison, and Catherine Shanahan, CDFA. Each episode, we sit down with divorce professionals and industry experts to provide insights and frank discussions about real people, real situations, and real divorce to help you achieve your best life post-divorce. This episode of We Chat Divorce is brought to you by My Divorce Solution, offering divorce financial planning so clients can secure the divorce settlement they deserve. Visit mydivorcesolution.com to request access.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to We Chat Divorce, where we break down the messy, emotional, and often confusing parts of divorce and help you make smart, informed decisions every step of the way. I'm Karen Chellew, Legal Liaison and co-founder of My Divorce Solution.
And I'm Catherine Shanahan, Divorce Financial Specialist and CDFA, also a co-founder of My Divorce Solution. We're here to give you the clarity you need so you can take control of your divorce, especially when it comes to your money and your future.
Today's guest has spent her career helping families understand exactly that. Amy Armstrong is a nationally recognized expert in conflict resolution, parent coaching, mediation, and family systems. She is the founder of the Center for Family Resolution and the Center for Coach Development. She spent more than 15 years helping parents, professionals, and courts approach high conflict divorces in a completely different way. She's also the author of Real-Time Parenting, Choose Your Action Steps for the Present Moment, and the upcoming book, Boundary Basics, Simple Steps to Resolve Conflict.
I'm telling you, you're going to love this episode. I mean, Karen, I loved the conversation, right? We can go on. And I think even at the end, we have to do follow-up conversation with her just about some topics that were brought up. But I know if you're listening, you're probably in a tough spot right now. You're either just faced with divorce, you're in the middle of a divorce, or you don't really know what to do. And so one of the big sections of this was her spinning the same decision. You know, we talked a lot about trusting yourself and building that trust for yourself, which we know is so important. But that one point where she said, are you spinning the same decision over in your head? It's what's my next step? Like, what is my next best step? And I like the buckets of there's a yes, there's a no, and there's a later, right? We talk about that a lot just with our process in itself and trusting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Every decision is so important. So here we go. Let's get into it. Amy, welcome to We Chat Divorce.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, Catherine.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
We're so grateful to have you here with us today. And Amy, before we jump in, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about your work and what brought you to what you do today?
I sure will. And before I do that, I just want to thank you guys because I just went in and gave a 5-star review for you guys. This is such a no-nonsense space, and I really appreciate how you guys streamline the facts and make it easy for your listeners.
Oh, thank you for that.
Oh my gosh. So where I've been was from the land of doing it all wrong and getting the right help and getting on a track now where my life literally looks nothing like it did when I was first separated and divorcing. And so by getting it all wrong, that means I did not trust myself. And that space is so scary to feel like, you know, of course we love our experts. We need our experts. We need knowledge and information. But if we don't have a way to integrate it with who we are and what's right for us and what's authentic for us, we're not going to get our needs met. And so I spent the entire first half of my life, literally until I was 45 years old, relying on my big sister, then relying on my first husband, and always looking for more information and more advice. And I even picked a lawyer that wasn't at all right for me because someone else told me to. Actually, my dad told me to, and it wasn't the right person for me. And so my journey was experiencing the pain, the confusion, the being curled up in a ball on the bathroom floor and having to have my friends throw me in the shower because I did not have a grip on who I was and what was right for me and how I could have an inner sense of just what it meant to be myself. And so, with that inability to just get oriented toward who I was, there was no way I could make good decisions about my divorce, and I didn't. So I'm just really appreciative that we can collaborate now with getting the right expertise, but also putting it together with this idea of how do you filter all the information that's coming through so that you can really get a read on your right next step and then maybe even be able to sleep at night.
That's really a great way to sum up how people feel when they're going through the divorce process, especially in the beginning, because you're constantly being fed advice from everyone who's gone through it or knows somebody who went through it. And you don't really know how it relates to you in particular. We hear that time and time again. And of course, with us, everything stems back to financial clarity. I think when you have that, you're able to make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah, I let my husband make my budget. I didn't make my own budget. I didn't include insurance and taxes. I literally didn't know that, and I believed him. So,
Yeah.
not good.
And so, Amy, to that point, whether it was intentional on his part or not, it was really an ability for you to make a decision, or anyone, any of us, to make decisions for ourselves while we're in this space of fear, uncertainty, overwhelm, panic, all of those emotions, to make good decisions, even if they're small decisions. And so learning that is what we all hope that everyone can benefit from as they navigate the divorce process.
Karen, you really bring up a good point because small is the space to learn. The bigger the step, the bigger the decision, the greater the fear. The greater the fear, the less we're able to tap into our good, crisp intellect. So, if we can practice getting really good at making financial decisions that are much smaller and start asking ourselves the right questions, then we can do it in a headspace where we're not so afraid of making a mistake and can literally learn how to integrate good advice with good sense.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a couple of clients about the budgeting part. We do the lifestyle analysis and their spouses, and it depends on what state you're on and how much they rely on this information. But their spouse is telling them, no, we have to downsize. You're never going to be able to afford this. You can't keep this house. Move out now before we do anything. And you're so fear driven that you're listening to your spouse and you make all these life changes before you even really know what your marital state is comprised of. And so they're just trying to direct you and you're scared. So we always say, take pause wherever you are. Your next best step with us is always to make sure you're financially clear. Or
Beautiful.
spouses tell them, I was on with an attorney and the woman was actually renting a 2-bedroom place. And the attorney's telling her, you have to get a different one. You need a 1-bedroom place. Well, wait, this is my rent. This is my actual rent for this too. And she couldn't defend herself because the attorney was, telling her what she had to do. So of course we talk behind the scenes, like you got to defend your numbers. This is what it actually is. And people are so afraid to do that because they're coming out of those relationships where they're controlled. And now they with attorneys sometimes that are controlling them. So it's hard for people to filter out what they need to filter out.
It's not something we have practice in because, as you know, folks going through this are dealing with new concepts that they haven't really thought about before.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so true. And to your point of listening to all of the outside noise, which is directly in relationship to your panic and fear, that in and of itself can lead you to make decisions that you will forever regret. I was on a call this week with a new person coming in, and she was in a panic because the house was going to go into foreclosure. It was in her spouse's name. And what if we do these 3 things so I can preserve the house for me and my children because it's going to be so detrimental to them? And of course, she checked AI, and AI had given all this information that didn't even make sense. But it was, she had put in her prompts from what she thought was the truth. But in just 5 minutes, I had questions for her. Well, what about this, this, and this? Oh, we didn't think of that, even though they had accountants involved. But when you don't know the full financial picture and the impact it can be to you, you can easily make decisions that will have impact when you're in this emergency mode or in this full-on fear and panic mode that can't be undone. So I really am looking forward to our conversation today so we can help people approach it in a bit of a different and better way.
Well, what I hear from the two of you is you're always asking them questions. What is specific to your financial balance sheet? And what is specific to your goals? What's more important to you? Long-term security or short-term cash? I know for me, it was having vacations in my budget eventually, knowing I had a little bit of money to go on trips to see my brothers. And it just sounds like I know your listeners appreciate knowing that you're so interested in what is specific and unique to them.
Yeah, because it's hard to stay focused like that, right? Mine was I just want to make sure I can always have my nails done. And
There
at
you
the end of the
go.
day, if I couldn't have my nails done, okay, then that was my decision. But somebody wasn't telling me I couldn't have my nails done, right? So I was used to doing that in my marriage. Don't tell me I can't do it because of
Right.
divorce. Now, if the impact is afterwards that I can't afford to it, or I can't afford to do it, then I can't afford to do it. That's my reality then. But you have to know where you're going to compromise and what you have to give up on yourself. And earlier, before we logged on, we started talking about trusting yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so I would really love to cover that in this podcast because a lot of times we have assessments that call us and they want the service, they need the service. We know they're fit. We don't just give an agreement to anyone. We have to qualify them. So if they qualify for our service, then we offer them an agreement. So we know that they need our services and that we're a fit, but
Mhm.
they don't trust themselves. They don't trust their instinct to do the right thing for themselves because they hear outside noises and they go down a path and spend 20, $30,000 and then circle back to us where we could have avoided a lot of that. So if we can talk a little bit of how you work with your clientele to trust themselves, I feel that that would be beneficial for our listeners and for Karen and I actually to hear.
Sure, absolutely. One of the first things is to identify support people that are holding a positive vision for your future. And I start here because in learning to trust yourself, you really want to look at who you're going to be your experts, to be your support people. And a lot of people go to support people that make them feel good, which is great. We all want to feel good. I get that. It feels good to be validated. It's just that in validating what's wrong, we often stay there. And a true support person is
Mm.
someone who is able to believe in you and really hold a positive vision for your future, for where you want to be 6 months from now, and 2 years from now, and 5 years from now, who can do that for you when you're so scared. You need someone that can keep reminding you that you're going to be okay. So that is number one in trusting yourself is make sure that you're surrounding yourself with someone that is there for you for your future, not to help you bash your ex, not to help you um, win at all costs, but someone that's going to help you be you in your future. So that's number one. There's a sign that I look for with people. We all say, I don't know, right? I ask questions, I get a lot of I don't know. We kind of unpack, what do you mean, I don't know? Does that mean you're overwhelmed? Does that mean you simply aren't in touch with what's true for you? And so I don't know. The number of times you say I don't know in a day can be indicative of whether you're trusting yourself or not. And so a good question to ask is, well, what do I know? I'm sure I know something. And just start there, like we mentioned with small financial decisions. When you're at the grocery store and you're choosing between two different types of products for dinner, whether you're going to go with the hamburger or the steak. Ask yourself, what's true for me right now? What do I want for dinner? That sounds trite, maybe, but it helps you tap in and build the muscle for saying, yeah, this is a steak night for me. I want a flank steak, sliced thinly on top of my romaine lettuce and feta cheese. That's going to make a great salad for dinner. And
Okay, you can
doesn't
make
that
me
sound
laugh.
good? You're coming over?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
idea is that you practice in these small moments of deciding what you're having for dinner. You practice, yeah, that is me, rather than, oh, well, I shouldn't eat so much red meat. Of course, that's true too. But build in that check in, that filter of what do I know about what's true for me in this moment. So that's a big one. Number two, to
Mhm.
practice with the small things. But number three, decisions should not take a long time. And if you're finding yourself ruminating, I guarantee everyone listening right now knows what it feels like to spin a thought for hours and days and weeks and keep having the same conversations in your head over and over and over again. Folks, that is a sign that you don't trust yourself.
Mm.
It's a hard thing for me to say because I want nothing more than to encourage everyone and to let you see all the good things in yourselves and celebrate all the good work you're doing. But I want everyone listening to notice that if you are ruminating, that is a sign that you don't trust yourself. Because when you're in a space where you've developed that muscle to trust yourself, know what's true for you, and be able to do that check in the moment, you have a pretty quick sense of a yes, no, or later. So later's fine. There's a lot of decisions that come across my cognitive path that I say, yeah, that's not a decision for today. And it's gone. I don't keep thinking about it. I know that's something I'll think about in the winter, or maybe I'll think about that when I'm with my daughter in a few weeks. But we don't have to keep going over and over and over. So I love to make the link for people between that sick feeling of I don't know what to do and a process that helps everyone get in touch with what's true right now so that you can make choices right now of what you want to think about, how you want to feel, and what you want to do right now.
Mm. Okay, well, I took a lot of notes here. I
I
really
took
like,
some too.
did you? Yeah, I really like that. I will recap for everybody my thoughts on them all at the end. But, I just think this is probably one of the best exercises that you can give someone, especially I know you deal with a lot of high conflict spouses.
I do.
But trust in yourself is the best way to put that wall up between that conflict that you're always feeling with your spouse and protect yourself because you can't protect yourself if you don't trust yourself.
100%. I can add in one question. Another piece of this exercise, we're so much more able to say what we don't want than what we do want.
Yeah.
So whenever you hear yourself saying no, saying don't, saying even should or can't, it's not my choice, or I have no choice, we want to just say, well, what is it that I do want? What would a good moment look like? What would a good day look like? And that helps us tap in to what boundaries we need to set. So the way I used to do it that didn't feel good, and the way I know I see a lot of people do it, is we try to set boundaries of telling other people what we need from them or what we want for them or what they shouldn't or you know we don't want them to do, instead of claiming for ourselves what we want. So I run a group on Tuesdays, and I just had a mom who kept telling me, he's too volatile. He's too volatile. And I asked her, what would it sound like for you to claim what you want in that moment? And she got the biggest smile on her face to just say, I am preserving my energy. I'm going to step away. And it was like this moment for her where she didn't was not at the mercy of his volatility anymore. She was able to say, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to protect my energy and move on right now.
I resonate with this because I was married to someone who had narcissistic traits. I'll just say it that way. And, I'm quoted for saying often, it's not divorce that messes up your kids. It's
No.
how both parents behave before, during, and after divorce that can mess up your kids. And I remember just trying to shift my mindset to what do I want for my children? Like, I don't have to be the hero, right? So if he wants, I want my children to have a car. If he wants to pay for the car and get all the accolades for paying for the car, fantastic, because I just wanted my children to have a car. And quite frankly, I didn't want the car payment, right? But I just try to always think, what do I want for the
Yeah.
kids? I got a little jealous that he took my son to the football games all the time. Like, I thought my son would love him more. Why can't I take him to the football game? But then I thought, you know what? What do I want my son to have this experience of going to the football game? So if it's my ex that has to do it, then let them do it because my son gets the experience. I say that easily now because I'm 14 years out from that divorce, right?
Mm.
But for the people listening, it's really hard to shift that mindset to what do I do want? And when you're co-parenting, if you can always say to yourself, I do want my kids to have the best of whatever the best their parent is, their other parent is, then that's what we want for our children.
They
And
deserve a good
they
parent
deserve it.
on both
Right.
sides.
Right.
Right. I really appreciate what you're saying. And you might, you're like you said, you're 14 years out, but people that are in it right now get to have a support person who they can share the part about being jealous and hurt and scared that I know in my situation, my kid's dad could provide bigger vacations, way bigger, much more elaborate meals together and trips together. And financially, it was very easy for me to go back and said, well, if I had had a fair shake in the divorce, I'd be able to do that too. Well, that's victim language that doesn't serve me at all now. Instead of just going right to, that's cool. My kids, my grandkids get to experience that luxury resort, and I get to teach them how to turn over rocks and look for critters. So
Mhm.
I get to have plenty of special things. It's just I still sometimes need support to be able to vent. And the part of me that is still jealous or frustrated or feeling small because I wasn't able to provide something financially for my kids, that's okay as long as we make sure that our support people are someone that's really supporting our positive future, not someone that's going to bring up more negative things about our past.
Mhm. Yeah. And
True.
you end up weeding out those people from your life, so
I
when you
hope
have
I
those
hope
negative,
everybody does. I literally had someone call me at the beginning of my separation and said, "I'm going to help you clean his clock." And I just remember in that moment thinking, "Oh, that's not me. I don't roll. That's first of all, she wasn't someone I wanted to associate with, and I just didn't roll that way." And I remember going back to that moment being, "Oh yeah, that's not true for me." Yeah, I have a
yeah.
funny saying I use. I used it at one of my talks. It was a little WTF button, but it had a Y at the end. And so it was what's true for you is what the WTFY stood
I
for.
like that.
Yeah, but
That's
there's
really
still a
good.
WTF in there.
I
So we
like
still
that.
have to have our moments of having WTF with the right people.
And
We've got
so,
That's
Amy, I'm hearing you say that that support person is someone that does a really good job of reinforcing and grounding who you are and what your goals are as a person, not so much as an advisor, but someone to just be there to help you stay in your truth is what I call it, whatever
I
that is for you.
that
And
just gives me goosebumps the way you said that, Karen. It's someone who reminds you of who you are. Yeah, who you are, who you really are. And they don't let you become someone you're not because you're going through a nightmare right now.
yeah, that's so true.
A lot of people say, now I remember. Now I remember who I am. That's a cool moment.
hmm
It is.
Yeah.
And I really like the fact that you say, do it in small increments. I'm all about that, always have been.
Totally. to
But
learn.
people who come into the process, they're so overwhelmed and they say, I want financial clarity. And financial clarity to them means I want to know the outcome.
Tell
There's
me
a
what to
pretty
do.
long distance, right, between.
A lot of
So,
work.
getting them to
Good work.
come back and they see then that their attorney is essentially their security blanket, because historically those are the professions that have solved the divorce for people, or that's what they think. And so they spend a lot of time talking about their anguish with their attorneys instead of coming to the table with, these are the things I don't know, such as, this week I was on a call with a person who had a ton of children expenses. But the discussion was, I don't know how he's going to pay them, or I don't know how we are going to pay them. Well, what are they?
Right.
Let's step back. Let's identify what it is, what your budget is, and then move on from there. But it's really hard for people to step back and be in it so that you can change or make good intention decisions about the outcome. And I think that's where people have a misfire, is they just want someone to tell them the outcome, what they're entitled to, what are my rights, before you ever have the information to even, get a response like that.
Oh my gosh, it's so well said. I'm writing a chapter of a book that the American Bar Association is publishing next year. And it's a chapter on coaching as part of a book called, it's about advance orientation. Basically, how do we prepare people for the legal process? And then my part is about how do they filter through all the information and know what's right for them. And it's all about coaching the individual and co-parent coaching. And what has been revealed as I'm working with my team to write this chapter is how much people aren't able to show up in the powerful way that they want to show up in the process because they haven't yet addressed what they're so afraid of. And this comes to play a lot in some of the judges trainings that I do, because judges are learning. I really appreciate what I'm seeing. There's a lot of good trends where, my role is to train judges in mental health. And the judges are learning that the way someone shows up, if they're disorganized, if they don't tell a straight story, that doesn't mean they're not intelligent. It might mean they've had some type of trauma, right? People that are trying to explain and use maybe too many words to explain something often reflect the fact that they've been really disempowered in their situation. And so I love this intersection of the law and, especially domestic court, family court, and mental health, to help us see that until we get clear, just like you're saying, Karen, until you really get clear with where you are now, you cannot plan your future. And the more we can help people be in the present, really address what's going on now, the more they're going to learn to trust that their future will unfold perfectly. If we do a good job with today, tomorrow is going to take care of itself.
I have two thoughts here. One is I would love to have MDS hop in on that book, because a lot of that has to do with transparency of information and the autonomy of that as well. And we talk about that all the time. But the second is I want to talk about the other side of that equation that you two just talked about. We're talking about the person who is not empowered with the information.
Right.
But now let me flip it to the person who is empowered. They also need that same lesson, but from a different angle, because they are logistically seeing the numbers. They have managed the numbers. They get the numbers. What they don't get is how it relates or plays out in divorce. And so they're so aggressive. And even if they're not diagnosed narcissists, they might have narcissist tendencies or traits or what have
Sure,
you.
could be very domineering just by fact that they have the information.
Exactly. And they need to be reeled back a little bit, because a lot of them participate in our process. And when we reel them back a little bit and say, well, wait a minute, you're at this level, your spouse is at this level financially. We don't do your work, just financially work. You need to allow a little space and give a little more information and let the spouse get the knowledge that they need. And they get that they get it. They're like, okay, I want her to understand the cash flow, or I want him to understand the cash flow, or I want them to understand that the business is comprised of this with multiple partners. And I want them to understand this. But they don't get that with the legal system. They just get a bunch of papers thrown at them and asked what they want. And they don't know what they want. And they end up needing, everything that you two just talked about. So there is both sides of this equation that need the same guidance. It's just not the one side.
We call it the train leaving the station. There's someone that leaves the station first emotionally, who's ready to leave the relationship sooner than the other person. And there's someone whose financial knowledge far exceeds and is way down the track from the other person. And I think I'm so glad your listeners have you to go to consult with, and just ask the right questions about what do you want to know and what can you accept as is, right? So for example, with a business valuation, someone going through divorce may not need the level of understanding that the business evaluator has. We need to be able to trust ourselves to hire the right person so that you don't have to become an expert business evaluator to know that you have the right information.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
That is our big part of our role. And it's,
that.
go ahead, Karen. I know
I
Karen.
was going to say, and not to make those hiring decisions before you have the data, documents, and information needed, because so many times, just by virtue of receiving the information and documentation, things are sorted out enough for mediation, or the business valuator's scope may have been changed or refined. So, people don't understand that attorneys, they're not financial people. So when you ask a financial question, the first thing that comes out of their mouth, and rightly so, is, well, you need a forensic or you need a financial person. And so, that's when that train goes out of the station, and it goes with sheer force and power that you can't bring it back in. You can't even slow it down. And, and then people are thousands of dollars in, nothing, resolved.
Maybe
And we can
even
just
more
go on
confused.
for that.
I just think I want to hear, and I want your listeners to know how cool it is when people get to that point of being able to sleep at night and being so relieved that they got the right financial advice. They got all their information that is relevant, that is most meaningful to them out on the table. And when their decision making matches their truth and their reality, life gets really good. There's a lot of celebration to be had.
It does, Amy. And just this week, I had a client who finally reached the place of, okay, now we're ready for a business valuator. For the past 9 months, her attorney and for her forensic team have been saying, okay, let's go to mediation. Let's go try to talk about settlement. And, we just kept staying in the place. Well, we don't have the documents. No, we're not ready. No, we're not ready. For 9 months.
Good for
Finally,
you to
the
hold that
documentation
line.
came in.
Mhm.
Yeah. And now they have enough. And then the evaluator, forensic, has the scope is so limited, he thinks he can get it done in half an hour. But before, they would have
Wow.
sat in discussions, they would have argued, the parties would have been at each other in a way that wasn't necessary. And so now it's essentially resolved. They just have a few more questions. So
That
that's
is such a
powerful.
beautiful success story. That client is going to feel so proud of themselves for making these steps a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one with two clients as participating spouse, and they could get nowhere, and they've been spending 10 or 20,000 each on their attorney. So he agreed to participate. And having them on the call together, um, there was just a misunderstanding. One attorney was interpreting one thing one way, the other one was interpreting it the other way. And it wasn't what either of them were trying to say to each other. So it was a little uncomfortable at first, the conversation. I really had to tell even our client, you got to chill out a little bit here. But I said it in front of the spouse. I said it to both of them. You're both being a little snarky, and we have to level that
Back it
out.
off.
But they really they made so much movement just because they were able to be heard, and that's the space we provide, right? We're not attorneys, we don't give legal advice, so they both had attorneys and they're both coming with whatever advice they got. But we can give the financial guidance that they need. And sometimes that's just hearing it. What's the clarity here? What is needed? And that now you can move forward, right? And
So
that's not what's
good.
given to people going through divorce. There's not that space. We don't invest their money, so our CDFAs are not allowed to invest money, as you probably know. So we really have no stake in the game, other than to help them have a space where they can come to good decisions for themselves.
Beautiful.
I don't want to leave this conversation today, and I know we're going a little over, but
Yeah.
this is such a good conversation. I don't want to leave it today without talking about your role as a judge trainer and what
Oh.
that's like, because I think a lot of judges are put in places to make these decisions for the family that sometimes they come at it from their own personal experience or historical
Mhm.
experience in the courtroom or whatever. So can you talk about that? Because I know you make the statement that, what you as a judge trainer knows that your attorney will never tell you. I just really
Mhm.
would like to cover that.
Sure. I ask this question often of attorneys who try to advise their clients of court outcomes. The truth of the matter is that any judicial officer has a pretty wide variety of how they're going to rule in any given situation, different day, different outcome. And it's really important that people know that court is unpredictable, and domestic court is especially unpredictable because some court orders are enforced and many are not. Many are not. And you never know when the court orders are actually going to be enforced. So, as a judge trainer, one of the biggest ahas I have is that they are simply people, and the ones that I work with, I would say 100% of them genuinely care, and that doesn't come across. They want to get it right for two reasons. They genuinely care about children, and they don't want to see you again. They don't want you to come back. They want you out, off their docket, down on with your life. And so the questions that I get asked from these judges are so personal. They're often very personal, where the judge is literally reflecting on their human understanding and their human reaction to what people are saying. And I think the thrill in it for me is that I can actually make a dent in the system, especially when it comes to domestic abuse and coercive control. And I always work into every training what judges might see if there's coercive control in the background and how to address it without making it an accusation, um, trying to label someone as coercively controlling makes it worse. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of people want it to be labeled. And my role is, I remember I sat with a woman in mediation yesterday and helped her come up with, and I was actually her support person for her. I wasn't the mediator this time, but I helped her come up with literally 10 statements that she can say to her coercively controlling spouse in mediation that says hell no without saying there's anything wrong with him, but her learning ways to not just explain over and over and over again why she won't do something and be very clear and succinct. So, back to the judge's question, judges want their litigants to be brief and clear. And that is the prep that I do. That is the prep that all clients need to be clear what their priorities are, to be emotionally regulated, and to be able to say what they have to say that in a way that doesn't undermine the values of the other person.
Mm, that's really good.
It's really good.
It's
And
so neat to be, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that, by the way.
It's a
yes, we
good one.
could.
It's a great
Yeah,
topic.
We
we should
probably
probably come
should.
back and do that. because
Yeah.
people think they're getting their justice. That's why they're going to court and they're not getting that.
Telling a long story actually undermines their case. That is not the place for the story. They need to tell their story. But the better prepared they are to tell their story in a clear manner and not try to make 10 points, but try to make 2 or 3 points, and how they take good care of their children and how well prepared they are financially versus just coming in and trying to paint the other person as the bad guy goes a long way.
Well, that's a good thing to end with. And I would like to just add, this is a great conversation, and I'm sure we'll have you back on because I think it's there's so many little
Sweet. A
nuggets
lot of
here that
nuggets.
that we could make into other podcasts. But I want to just point out a couple of your tips that you gave about trusting yourself, because I think that is the hardest thing for people to do, even in our world of the financial world. They never had the trust for themselves to do that. And we always say it's never too late to create a new story about money. So be around support people who are supporting your future, where you're going in your future. I love that. Number two, validate what's wrong. You not, don't validate what's wrong all the time. Switch that model in your head. We're always saying, what refeeding in our minds what's wrong. Talk about what's right or what you really want and
Or
move in
what
that
would be
direction.
right. Yeah.
Or what
Paint
would be
that
right.
picture of what would be right.
And that goes to the point that Karen pointed out again with the small moments. This one Karen actually taught me about. It's that when you spin your decisions in your mind, put it in the buckets of yes, no, or later. Karen's really big of always saying, guess what? And I find myself copying her with this phrase, the good news is you don't have to decide that today. I am a
Oh,
decision maker, good, better, and different. I'll pivot from what the result of my decision is. I've always been like that. And I'm a goal setter, so I need to get there. But she has really taught me to, you know, I don't have to decide that today. It's not something for
beautiful.
today. So,
Wait, I have to add to that because when that decision day comes,
yeah.
We're
I'm
gonna
still
make it.
wanting to punt it down, and
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Catherine's like, guess what? We have to decide that
today's
today.
the day.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do give Karen her space that she needs. I know she's the later bucket, and then I will say, okay, that's it. Today's the decision. But I think, and the last one is, I mean, my WTF is never ending with a Y. I love a WTF, but I think I'm going to switch that to the what's true for you. I think that's beautiful. What is true for you? So thank you for that.
You're
So if
very
you're
welcome.
listening, and you want us to talk about these things or any of these other nuggets that we touched on, don't be afraid to leave a comment with us in our podcast or share this episode with somebody else who you feel that needs it. But Amy, it's been great having you
I
on.
I knew what we were going to be talking about today, and I put together a download for this program for your listeners where they get to practice even looking at some sample ideas of what you could say when communicating with a difficult co-parent and going through and choosing which one has energy for you. Just starting to
Mm.
play with that idea of how you're reading each one and what it means to you. I also included um, uh, a little kit, just a rescue kit when your nervous system is going haywire and you need an immediate rescue. So I threw that in because I know everybody here is wanting to feel a little bit more confident and calm, and we got to do
Mhm.
that with the nervous system. And then I also put in a piece about if your boundaries aren't working, let's fix them. A few ideas of what to look for if your boundaries aren't working. And then I have one other piece just for this group about lawyers, and it's kind of it's meant to be a little bit humorous, but it's really about the different types of lawyers, and I just think it's really good for people to read and kind of see how they're engaging with their lawyer.
That would be a great podcast. That, and we continue on the justice with the judges and Karen, her lawyer uh, blog article.
Yeah.
That would be
Uh,
a great podcast.
Uh, let's
yeah.
do it. Let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
And to our listeners, stay tuned for that next episode. But we want to thank you for joining us today on We Chat Divorce. If this episode gave you clarity or a new question to consider, please pass it along to someone who needs to hear it. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you are listening. Every share helps us reach more people searching for honest, financially grounded answers. You can learn more about us at mydivorcesolution.com. You can learn more about Amy in the show notes. And until next time, remember that clarity is power. Make your decisions with confidence, with verified information, and with the right people in your corner.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of We Chat Divorce. We hope this episode was informative and supportive on your divorce journey. If you're looking for more support for navigating divorce with confidence and clarity, head over to mydivorcesolution.com for more podcast episodes, divorce events, and resources for your divorce. We'll see you back here for our next episode.